All right, my friends, so we are live here at, let me get this thing working right. We are live at Lanier Village Continuing Care Retirement Community. Trying to get that work. Okay, good. And you can see the sun's bearing down on me. Let's see if I can't get that up better. So it's interesting because I came up here on behalf of a client of mine who's he and his wife, real nice people. They went to New Mexico and they said, hey, what do you think about these continuing care retirement communities? So I went to they had an open session for it, and I gotta tell you, man, I'm a fan. This is Lanier Village Estates, LVE, in Gainesville, Georgia. So it's about an hour from my house, an hour north of Atlanta. It's a beautiful day, it's hot, but man, not a cloud in the sky. If you are looking at a continuing care retirement community, this is a good one for you. This is an AXE retirement community, and I want to share with you a couple of things I learned here today. A couple things. First of all, they have these cottages, so these nice little cottages that's scattered on the perimeter of the community, and they got garages. It looks like 1 and 2 car garages, and I just drove around. It's fantastic. You know, they take care of all the land work, the landscape, and all that, but you can still have a garden. That's nice. So if you're into gardening, you can still do that. They take care of all the landscape. And then they got behind me, this is the assisted living. So what happens is you go into you can have a cottage home, is basically a 1,200, 1,500 square foot home. I mean, these suckers are big. The first house I ever bought, my wife and I, was in Phoenix, Arizona. Am I looking at it? Yeah, up there. And that was 1,231 square feet. It had 2.5 or 2 bathrooms, 3 beds, 2 baths. And these places up here are even bigger than that. And so you can have a pretty good sized house if you want as a cottage. Again, in the perimeter, you got these nice little landscaped homes or cottage homes, which is nice. And so you can start with there, especially if you don't feel you need any assisted living at any point or any full-time care. But I'll tell you the benefits and I'll tell you the negatives on all this stuff here in just a second, because I just attended a session again for my clients that are thinking about this place specifically. And so anyway, you can get a little cottage if you want. Behind me, it's hard to see, but that's going to be the assisted living community right there, where if you need to get more care on a regular basis, that's where they put you in. But you have a cottage. You have apartments called independent living. So your cottages and apartments. All right, we still on there? Okay, so you go from a cottage to an apartment, and then you can go to assisted living facility. It's like right behind me. Yeah, okay, looks like we're still on. And then if you go to skilled care, you go to skilled nursing home care, and that's where it gets expensive. So the drawback about a continuing care retirement community is that you got to pay a lot of money up front, my friends. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to get in. So a couple things, 2 things to think about. What generally happens is you'll sell your home for, say, $400,000, and the entrance fee will just say is magically $400,000. So you sell your house, and that will be the interest fee, if you will. All right, so you sell your house, you give them the $400,000, but what that does is it guarantees that as your level of need increases, A, you will never be put out, and B, you always have a place. So it guarantees that you will be able to move from independent living to assisted living and then nursing care. And then they have health care where if you're got dementia or something like that, they call it memory living or memory care, something like that. And it's all, it's just all self-contained. It's like a campus. It's literally, you can eat here, you got tennis courts, you got pools, you got the whole thing. It's all self-contained. And it should be, because it ain't cheap, that's for sure. But a couple things though is that you got to make sure if you're doing one of these life care communities, it's called a life care contract. A life care contract says you are giving a certain amount of money to, in this case, Lanier Village Estates, or it's an ACTS, A-C-T-S retirement community, and they'll never raise your fees as you transition from point A to point B to point C to point D, and then ultimately to your death. And so that's called a life care contract. What I asked the question was one guy was talking about, he said he looked at other facilities and they had these presentations. Oh, beautiful monarch butterfly, man. They had these other places that you thought it was a life care contract, but it actually turns out that they weren't. And so they give you these presentations where you're thinking you're buying into a level of service and a level of care for the same monthly rate, but it turns out it's actually fee for service. And that's what you got to understand, fee for service. That simply means when you go from independent living to assisted living, you pay more. You go from assisted living to full-time 24/7 nursing care, you pay more. That's called fee for service. So it might be $2,000 here in assisted living, it might be $3,000 a month here in independent living and assisted living, and it might be $5,000 here and that's called your nursing care, full 24/7 skilled nursing care, and then whatever it's going to be if you have memory care. And so the issue with that is you don't know what it's going to be. You have no idea what your fee is going to be as you go forward. So you're saying, I'm paying $3,000 a month now, but I might be paying $8,000 a month. You just don't know, because a couple of things are happening, my friends. One is the cost of skilled nursing care is a heck of a lot higher it is today than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And it's going to be a heck of a lot higher 5 years hence to 10 years. We just don't know. So you have no idea what the fee is going to be going forward. And that's a big, big risk. Now, the alternative to the risk is you get a long-term care policy. And I've talked about long-term care. I have one. I'm 48 years old. My wife is 44. Why do I have long-term care? Because as I said before, 41% of all people who need assisted living right now are under the age of 65. And so because of that, I know we'd be destitute if we needed long-term care. My wife couldn't afford that. My wife couldn't pick me up. I'm 200 pounds. You know, she's $1.15 or something like that. There's no way she's going to be able to help me at home. And so long-term care, assisted living, you know, heaven forbid nursing care, we got to be able to pay for it somehow. So that's nursing. So that's what happens. We don't know what's going to be these fee-for-services. You're paying today under the assumption that you're going to bear the risk for fee-for-service. You're saying, I'm going to bear the risk. And so what a life care contract says, or a life plan contract, you're paying a flat fee today, $5,000 a month. Wherever you're at, you're paying a flat fee now, knowing full well that it cannot increase as you get more and more needs for services. So what this guy was saying, Chip, he's like, he went to some other places and they made it seem like it's a life care contract. But then he said, because he had an issue with this with his aunt. He saw his aunt go from independent living to assisted living to nursing home care and ultimately die. He saw it with his very eyes. He said, at the end of the day, if my aunt needs, or my wife in this case, or I do, need to go into a nursing home, how much more does it cost? And they said, oh, we don't know because it's a fee for service. He goes, but your presentation is making it seem like it's not a fee for service. It's making it seem like a life care contract. That's why if you're looking at continuing care retirement community, you gotta read the contract. Is it fee for service? I cannot stress this enough. Is it fee for service? Because if it's fee for service and you think it's a life plan contract, and a life plan contract just means you're paying more today to cover you if you need it in the future, you're gonna be in a world of hurt. You'll be destitute, I'm telling you right now. That's just wrong. And that actually kind of ticks me off, because I asked him, because there's a whole bunch of people there. And I said, well, what happens if my grandma gets this contract and she thinks it's a life care contract, but turns out when she needs fee for service, she doesn't have the money? He goes, that's exactly right. And given his experience, the way he had to go through with his wife, he saw the exact same thing happen. And I mean, not his wife, his aunt, where they had to get more and more and more coverage, and it just made her broke. And so now his wife, in his life care contract, his wife has dementia now. She's in a 24/7 skilled nursing care facility. She's in a facility 24/7. He is still in his apartment. It doesn't cost him one penny more. He's still in his apartment. His wife is now in an assisted living facility, or again, skilled nursing care facility, and he is paying the same fee. Now it costs him more on the front end. Don't get me wrong. You're going to pay more on the front end to have to get that service. But I'm telling you, if you think, if you have Alzheimer's in your background, if you have long lived, I guess, your mom and dad, or your grandparents, your uncles, or something like that, if you think there's a chance that you're going to need dementia or something like that, I'm telling you, get some kind of insurance product. It makes sense to me. You get a life care plan through a continuing care retirement community. I mean, this is for people who are looking, like 60, 75 years old or something like that. A life care contract makes sense. Now, secondly, if you think it's a life care plan and you aren't sure, you get a friggin' attorney to look at that for you. Ask questions, because if you lay down a couple $100,000 to be in one of these places under the auspices as a life care contract, and it turns out it's not, you're holding the wet bag because you signed the dotted line. That's on you. It's not on these guys as much as you think it would be. All right, so now another thing you can do is, again, going back to long-term care insurance. Here, they give you a 30% discount if you have a long-term care. So if, let's say, it costs $500,000 to get in for a life plan contract, and again, that just means covers, same fee, it don't change. If you have a long-term care insurance policy, they'll give you a 30% discount, plus, I think she said 40%, 30%, 40%, I can't remember, but it's a pretty significant amount discount on your monthly fee too. So not only do you not pay $500,000 to get in, you pay, I guess that's what, $350 plus instead of paying $5,000 a month, you pay $3,500 a month or something like that. But you have to keep your long-term care up. You cannot just let it go to the wind. You've got to maintain it. So if you have a long-term care insurance policy, what some people do is they'll say, I'll get a steep discount on my cost to get in, knowing full well that at the end of the day, my long-term care policy will kick in and I'll be to have some coverage for that. A lot of people are here saying they dropped their long-term care policies because they like the idea of life plan, because they didn't want to have to mess with the long-term care company. Someone's got to fill out the paperwork. Now I just think I'm just using John Hancock. And I asked, I said, what if my grandma, she's got dementia? How the hell does she know what to fill out for long-term care? Let's just say, you know, now my grandma's dead, so it's not specific to her, but how would she know what to do? And so the issue with these guys is they're going to help you to some regard, but they need to recoup their money. If they can't recoup their money, they're going to charge it to you for providing you skilled nursing care. And I said, well, so it seems to me, let's just say you're 74 years old, it costs you, I don't know, $500 a month for your long-term care, you know, $6,000 a year. And so that's, you know, that's 1 month essentially of what it's going to cost you for to live here. I mean, living here ain't cheap. Like I said, living here is expensive. But just in the back of your mind, you say, is it worth it to drop my long-term care in order to have a you know, decent discount, you know, 30 to 40%, whatever it was? That's a tough one. Specific ease of living and just knowing you got coverage. I'd probably drop the long-term care simply because that way you know these guys, they're contractually obligated to take you from point A to point Z without any muss or fuss. But man, that's tough. That's tough because, you know, at the end of the day, to save, you know, 30 to 40%, that's real money, man. And now what happens is too, they have to have at least 3 years. At least this place right here, you got to have a 3-year long-term care contract. So remember, I did a thing on not too long ago. Long-term care, you're buying this pool of money. Let's just say it's $200 a day for 4 years. And we'll just, I don't know what that is, but just you're buying for $200 a day. It's going to cover you for 3 years. Essentially what happens is you're buying this pool of money. So you're buying $250,000. All right, so if you have a benefit pays monthly, that's what you want, because some days you might have more of a benefit need and some days you might not. You want it paid monthly, not on a daily basis. So let's just say benefit pays $10,000 a month, just using that for an example. So at the end of the day, after the 3 years are up and you're still using your long-term care policy, these guys right here, they do not increase your fee at all. They say at the end of the day, we are going to give you what's called our own life care contract, but we're not charging, not raising your premium. I know it's kind of confusing, but it's actually pretty beneficial if you think about it. If you go in with a long-term care policy and you can afford it on a monthly basis, it's just tough though, because someone's still got to deal with the company and they'll help you. But if you know anything about a life insurance or long-term care insurance, you know, these guys just don't cut checks mindlessly. They got to make sure that you are in dire straits for them to cut the check for sure. And I just think about my grandma or something like that, being one of these, been deal with a long-term care insurance company, John Hancock, and some whippersnapper sitting there saying, "Whoa, Mrs. Smith, I'm sorry, but it turns out you were able to put a diaper on, and so you do have continence." I think, yeah, continence, where you basically can't hold in your, you know, number ones and twos. That's what continence is. And say, "Oh, no, we found you could because you're able to put," I mean, I don't know. I just, at the end of the day, you know, you want it as seamless, as easy as possible when you're dealing with issues relating to your mental health and when you're dealing with issues relating to your physical health as well. And I just, at the end of the day, if you have the scratch, and it's probably worth it to pay for the life plan contract, even though it's going to cost a little bit more. But I tell you, I don't know. That's tough. That's tough because we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to get in, thousands of dollars a month. Now, I will say, man, this place is sweet. They got food. You make all the food. They do all the maintenance, landscaping, and the food is sweet. It's not just like burgers and fries from the chow hall in the Army. And we're talking real food, man. It was awesome. They offered me the free lunch. I mean, they're doing all this right now. They're going for a free lunch, but I had to get out of here because I want to do this video. But man, that's pretty good. So you're paying, you know, say $4,000 a month, no property taxes, no cable bill. It covers not all of your meals. I think it's maybe two or one a day or something like that, but it's covering the bulk of your food. It covers landscaping. I mean, it's just, you know, you're probably spending $4,000 a month on your house as it is. So it's not a bad deal in the least. Oh man, if I had long-term care, and again I do, and I was up here, it'd be a tough choice to make. You got to crunch some numbers for sure. All right, so what happens here? Why, guys, the phone got too hot for me, so now I'm sitting in my car with the air conditioning going on. I'll wrap this up here in just a second, but at the end, I can't remember where I left off. All right, so we're back online. Sorry about that interruption. The phone kicked off because it got too hot. I'm in the blazing sun here in Georgia, getting a probably sunburn on my face. All right, so I just want to just follow up with the continuing care retirement community here. I even have my GoPro. Maybe I'll even do that with a GoPro. I don't need you guys seeing up my nostrils here, so I put it like that. All right, so just you're going to pay for long-term care if you need it. Now, a lot of people I think are threatened by the idea of long-term care. Oh my goodness, I'm never gonna be able to retire because I need long-term care. And you know, if you watch my videos, the vast majority, oops. All right, yeah, I just want my mic on. Majority of people don't need long-term care. They just don't. For any extensive consideration, they just don't. But those who do are going to be in dire straits if they don't have it. And so if you can find a place like this, a continuing care retirement community, where you can afford it, and you afford it by selling your home, again, is always the cost will always be most likely to get in the cost of the average home in your community. So if you live in Alpharetta, Georgia, and let's just say average home goes for $350, lo and behold, the cost to get into your CCRC will be $350,000. It's pretty simple how that works. The monthly fee is going to range from anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. No getting around that. So $3,000 to $5,000 a month. Now, if it's you and your spouse, you're going to need to add some money to both these things, because like I was telling you, my man Chip up here, whose wife has Alzheimer's, she's in one unit and he's in his own house, his own apartment, and he's only paying one fee, which is the benefit of the life care contract. So if you're looking at a CCRC, you got to ask them specifically, hey, people, if my wife has dementia and she needs to be in skilled nursing care and I'm good to go, I can still go out there and put it up $225 on the bench, what happens to our fee? Let them tell you specifically. I'm just telling you right now, because they say, ooh, that's what's called fee for service. That's not a life care plan. And then you're up against it in terms of how much it's going to cost. There's no way you can plan for that. There's no way you can plan for that. So what I suggest, I would absolutely consider you to get a long-term care insurance contract. Get one that has a life insurance component. I'm a big fan of these things. You get a life insurance contract that has long-term care on it. It's called an accelerated death benefit. So what happens is you got a $250,000 life insurance policy. If you need to have access to it, you start pulling money out of there up to, I think it's usually 80% of your death benefit. So it's an ADB, accelerated death benefit, ADB. And that will give you some opportunity to use that to at least fund whatever these things cost here in a long-term care facility. Now, that's probably your cheapest bet right there. Whether or not a CCRC will cover that, I just don't know. You got to look at it. But I'm a fan, man. I tell you, the food looked good to me. If I was eating there, I would have eaten like a freaking crazy man, because it looked good. It smelled good. The facility's fantastic. Tennis courts they got, like I said. Just pools, you name it. It's just a nice place to be if you have the kind of money. The one drawback I will say, because my client, a friend of mine, he said he's not so sure he's ready to be around old people all the time, and there's old people all the time up here. Don't take this wrong, anybody, but I was the youngest by far, other than the staff. So that that might be something you have to contend with. That's just a fact. The interesting thing was, I thought it was pretty cool. A lot of veterans are up here. I mean, it makes sense. They have TRICARE for life. They have their pension. But you have private Joe Snuffies commingling with, General LeMay, if you know what I'm talking about. So that's pretty cool, actually. You got a lot of interesting people here. Yeah, just talked to a lot of fun people that have, just nice. People are nice. No other way around that. If you're looking for a little bit more diversity in terms of racial components, I didn't see it up here, frankly, so that might be an issue you have to contend with if that's big on your to-do list. I'm sure it is more diverse than what I saw, but it's not shocking, frankly. I mean, the majority of people, especially older people, are going to be white, and so they're going to be up here in these communities more so than any other ethnic or racial mixes, for sure. But I tell you, I don't think I don't know what it's like to be other than a white guy. My inclinations, I doubt you'll have a hard time meeting friends regardless of your racial background, regardless of your religion, but I just don't know. I could see that, I didn't see any people other than white people here, and so that might be a consideration for some folks. Just keep that in mind, and no one's going to hold you accountable and say, oh, that's fine. I mean, that's, if you want to be around people like you and you don't fit the mode up here, then this might not be the place for you. But I mean, it's just the people were nice. They were nice. They're nice to me as a young guy. And I asked questions and no one got mad at me or anything like that. I'm trying to think of what else I want to tell you about. I guess that's it. was a good learning experience. I enjoyed it very much. The people who are here seem to be very interested in answering questions, and they didn't hold back in terms of the negatives. The negatives again were just old people. I mean, all old people up here. That's just what they're saying, not just me. The negatives were not having a garage. So if you go to an apartment and you don't have a garage, that's a negative. That guy Chip said he can't grill. He misses his gas grill, and I get that because I grill 5 times a week, so that could be a pretty big negative. But all in all, if you got the money, I'm a big fan of CCRCs. I think you should look at it. Just remember, make sure you understand the plan. Oh, that's what I was gonna say, downsizing. That's another one. So a lot of folks are talking about, they have decades living at the same house. Their mom died, they passed on a lot of stuff. They just they consolidate in their home. And now that comes time here, they get a call that says, hey, we got a place for you. You got to get ready to move in. They got downsized, and that's tough. And so, if you're looking at CCRC or even just going into a assisted living facility, understand downsizing is going to be a challenge. So you got to keep that in mind too. That's going to bring some tears, I imagine. All the memories you got, and some you're going to have to throw out because these places aren't huge. But I tell you, the carriage houses, you can get one of these places 1,800 square feet. For you and your wife or you and your spouse, that's pretty good. That's not a small place. I'm telling you right now, some of these apartments up here, the Magnolia, I think it's 1,821 square foot, 2.5 baths, a den. Man, that's not too shabby. So anyway, I hope this helps. I look at it, CCRCs, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'm just here to serve. But I appreciate it. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks now. I got to figure out how to turn this thing off right there.